Honeybees do a waggle dance to direct other bees to sources of nectar. But dancing bees like this one can be halted by a headbutt from another bee. Now researchers have found that this headbutt is actually a warning signal. A feeding station was set up in the lab to mimic a source of nectar. Then foraging bees were introduced to dangers at the station, such as competition from rival colonies. When foragers returned to the hive, they stopped bees dancing. Scientists think the behavior warns dancers of a dangerous source of nectar.
There are two main reasons why parents decide to educate their children at home. Either they dislike schools on principle, however odd those principles might be, or they don't believe their local schools provide an adequate education or the right sort of education for their children. If someone decides to teach their child at home, either by themselves or by employing a teacher, they have to convince their local education authority, LEA, that the teaching provided is satisfactory. Schedules, lesson plans and book lists must be shown, and it must also be demonstrated that the child is in fact learning and that they have adequate opportunities for physical education and meeting other children. Furthermore, while there is no formal assessment, officers from the LEA will come and inspect what is being done and look at the child's exercise books. If they are not satisfied, they make out a school attendance order.
Learning a language in the classroom is never easy, and quite frankly, it's not the way that most people would choose to learn if they had other options. Having said that, there are plenty of reasons for keeping languages on the school curriculum. For one thing, a fair number of students go on to take jobs in business and commerce that require a basic knowledge of a second language. When you talk to young employees in top companies, it seems that they had a career plan from the start. They were motivated to find additional things to put on their CVs, and of course language is one of those added but significant extras.
The assignment that I'm going to set for the holiday period is one that we've given students for a number of years. It's quite practical and will allow you to get out and about. It's no good being shut up in your rooms all the time. It does have a written element too. Basically, it's a data gathering exercise, and there are two choices with regard to how you collect the data. We'll go through those in a moment. I'm also going to give you a link to an internet site that is, well, it's critical that you review this before you do anything, as it provides a lot of guidance on data presentation, both in terms of how you plot it, its diagrammatic form, and also its description, which has to be clear. This week we're going to be continuing our discussion of women in society. Last week we looked at a number of issues relating to women in education. If you remember, we discussed women both at school and at university. Today we're going to be considering the roles that women play in the workplace. Again, we'll start by taking a historical perspective, and inevitably you'll find that many of the same events that impacted on women in education also had a major influence on their working lives. In the second half of the lecture, I'll concentrate on the situation in Europe today, and I'll invite you to suggest how you think things are likely to develop over the next decade. Okay, so let's get started.
All whales, dolphins and porpoises are social animals, although the degree of sociability varies greatly from one species to another. Differences of behaviour have not evolved by chance. Living in close proximity to other animals has certain costs and benefits, so we can expect the group size adopted by a species to be the most suitable for its environment and lifestyle. River dolphins, for example, have a fairly simple social system, forming small groups of just a few animals, rarely more than 10. On the other hand, many of the oceanic dolphins may roam the seas in groups of thousands. Also, there can be differences within species. For example, with sperm whales, females and juveniles form groups, while adult males are solitary. Some of the reasons for living in groups include greater efficiency in searching for and catching food, benefits for mating, learning, defense, and sensory integration. Now, sensory integration is the means by which each animal contributes to the information gained by the group as a whole, and this plays an important part in defense and in the search for food. For example, if one animal discovers a shoal of fish or a hungry shark, it can immediately pass on this information to the others in the group so that all may benefit. A single animal or small group may remain unaware of the food or predator and so miss a meal or suffer an attack.
How would you define reasonable as it is used in law? For example, you are allowed to use reasonable force when defending yourself. It seems to depend on how serious the situation was, whether it was possible to resolve it by peaceful means, whether you were ready to try those means, and, finally, the relative strengths of those involved. Now, most men know, and they've probably grasped this from their earliest years in the school playground, that when it comes to blows, fights don't stop until one of you is in no shape to do any damage to the other. The criteria mentioned seem a bit fuzzy to me. How can you convince a jury you were ready to try and talk your way out of it when the other person would have none of it? And besides, he was quick to land the first punch. Also, you can strike the first blow and still plead self-defense. Of course, you again have the problem of convincing people that the threat was so great that you had no alternative apart from getting beaten up yourself. Reacting calmly and rationally to a perceived threat is not easy to do.
So, just a few weeks ago, excavators of a remote archaeological site in southeastern Asia reported an exciting find under the ground. They found evidence of a writing system which dates back thousands of years. 3 blocks of flat rock with odd symbols which look like ancient forms of writing were discovered. Well, this find could reveal much about an advanced, independent, urban culture, which historians believe may have lived in that area. However, many scholars are skeptical about the authenticity of the blocks, which they suspect
In the celebrity vaccine wars, I'm siding with actress Amanda Peet. And comedian Bill Maher, well, I like your show, but when it comes to vaccines, you don't know a punchline from a clothesline. Maher recently tweeted to his Twitter followers, quote, "If you get a swine flu shot, you're an idiot." On his HBO program, Real Time, last week, Maher went head-to-head with former Senator Dr. Bill Frist, who patiently explained why vaccines were, in fact, good. But Maher wasn't buying it. He advocates a healthy lifestyle over vaccines. But polio and smallpox outmatched many robust immune systems. Actress Amanda Peet, meanwhile, has used her celebrity to encourage vaccinations, specifically in response to the alleged vaccine autism connection, for which there's no scientific evidence, but which has some parents afraid of childhood vaccinations. In a letter to a parenting magazine, Peet wrote, quote, "It's irresponsible to suggest that virtually the entire medical community and the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics are behind a massive cover-up about vaccine safety," end quote. See you in line for the flu shot.
Scientists discover new species all the time, on the order of 15,000 a year. One of the latest additions to the tree of life is a new type of leopard frog, which might sound unremarkable, except for where it was found: New York City. But how's a frog go unnoticed in the Big Apple? Well, even experts have a hard time telling this new species from its northern and southern cousins, on looks alone. But the new guy has a different croak, which raised ecologists' suspicions. So they tracked down 4 leopard frog populations with the unique call, including one within view of the Statue of Liberty, and took DNA samples. As they suspected, the odd croakers weren't southern or northern leopard frogs, or even a mix. They had a genetic ancestry of their own, earning them new species status. Those results appear in the journal Molecular Phylogenetics and Evolution. The frogs are tough New Yorkers. The center of their range appears to be Yankee Stadium, but the researchers say the urban amphibians face threats like pesticides and infectious diseases, not to mention real-life games of Frogger.
They're called button cells, coin cells, or watch batteries. By any name, these tiny round batteries pose a choking danger to small kids. And if a child succeeds in swallowing a button cell, the battery may short circuit in the moist esophageal environment, burning the tissue. A few thousand kids wind up in emergency rooms each year after swallowing a button battery. But a team of Harvard and MIT researchers that includes prolific inventor Robert Langer thinks they have a partial solution: a protective coating. The scientists covered batteries with a material, technically a quantum tunneling composite, in which microparticles of conductive metal are suspended in an insulating layer. Under most circumstances, including inside of a child, the layer is non-conductive. But when the material is subjected to high pressure, the microparticles are squeezed close enough together to carry a current. One such pressurized environment is the typical battery compartment in a small device. You often have to force the battery into place. So the same battery that remains inert when swallowed works just fine when it's jammed into its slot in a hearing aid. The waterproof design would also protect batteries from corrosion in high humidity. The research is in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Tests with pigs found the coated batteries to be gentle on the porcine esophagus. Next step, figure out a way to keep kids from putting the batteries in their mouths in the first place. Can a quantum tunneling composite be made to taste terrible?
What's going on in Parliament now is really interesting to watch. Expect to run into a lot of challenges during this project. Tomorrow's lecture will look closely at educational policies in America.